One of our biggest contributions to the planet is waste. And it is so easy to feel overwhelmed. Like, no matter what you do, your existence automatically creates waste. But that's not the perspective we're aiming for here. None of us are perfect. Expecting perfection from yourself will only bring pain and disappointment. Instead, the real goal is to reach for better every single day. That steady striving, that's what ultimately shapes you into the best version of yourself. And that is the perspective we're here for. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to none other than the Happily Living Podcast. I am your host, Gabrielle Brown, and if this is your first time listening, I want to invite you to go follow us on Instagram and click the notifications bell so you can stay up to date on the latest news. And hey, if you don't have an Instagram, I relate. There are times where I don't even know why I even have a phone. Truly. That's why our crew has a website and yes, even a Pinterest. Because listen, Pinterest is my vice. What can I say? I've had it since I was 12, which is really weird to say out loud. And now those cookies are so personalized to me that it's actually scary. But also an addiction I refuse to quit. Okay, so I want to start off with something really quickly. I take my words very seriously. I want to make sure I provide you guys with credible, accurate information. And I have always said, do your research beyond what I say. Don't ever just take what I say wholeheartedly, right? That should never be done. It's a good practice not to. So, when I told you guys about the great news with the marine protected area finally being, announced for the area in Mozambique, the data that we are adding to, the timeline in which the article came, and then how it was posted in other parts, like it just wasn't adding up. So I want to take it back. 100%. I take it back. I'm not quite sure what's going on. But just know that just because it may not be entirely covering what we wanted to cover in the marine protected research program that we did, does not mean the future does not hold a strong promise. So just keep that in mind. But I do have some great news that I'd like to share with you guys because I thought, if I'm going to take something away, I should probably add something beyond the episode itself. So huge news for the environment. Within Michigan, a big chunk of Michigan's wild elk country is now part of the Public Trust Forest Land. This has been published by Michigan Live with Sherry McWhirter, and it's incredible because, an individual who is going to sell it, it will forever be protected, conserved. It's really, really cool. It's a great article to read. I thought it was amazing because it prevents further development, no matter what. So I will attach it to my episode notes, but yeah, just a little tidbit for you guys, but I had to make sure that I came clear with that. Now back to today's episode. I am so excited because the topics we're covering today connect deeply with each other. Creating this episode has brought me so much joy, and I hope it leaves you all inspired. And if you find value in today's conversation, please, please, please leave a review and give us a thumbs up. If the Happily Living Podcast leaves you wanting more, that is exactly how you can support us and help this community continue to grow. With that being said, part 1 is why this movement matters. Here's the thing. The purpose of this movement isn't just a passing trend. It's a way of life. The concept of being 1% better every day, the entire foundation of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, isn't about fads. It's about change, real change. And listen, it's not here to take away your religion. It's not here to create barriers or negativity. It's here to enhance your life, to build mindful practices that nurture your well-being, to offer you a lifestyle that makes you feel genuinely happier, more grounded, and more alive. I can say this with confidence because I've lived it. This pursuit of better has led me to a deeper understanding of who I am. It's shaped me into someone I feel proud of. It has drawn me closer to God, and ultimately, it's what led me to create this podcast that you're listening to right now. So let me ask you a question. And be honest with yourself here. There's no one around you to hear what you have to say. You can say it in your mind, you can say it out loud. If you're listening with someone, don't feel obligated to share, but just be truthful with yourself. How many of you want to like who you are, but don't? Just think on that. How many of you want to do the right thing, but find it easier to just sit back and do nothing? How many of you are stuck in a cycle of either confusion, disappointment, or even hopelessness with your job, your routine, your daily life? I mean, you did what you were told. You went to school, you got a job, you pay your bills, you wake up every day on repeat, and yet you're not happy. You're not living the life you truly want to live. And I'll tell you why. Because so many of us are trapped inside a social construct that was sold to us as, quote unquote, the way to live, right? School, job, bills, house, weekends for chores, and then someday retirement. But deep down, you know there's more. And that leads me to part 2. Your impact matters. And here's the truth. Being better isn't just about personal growth. It's also about becoming aware of your impact on the planet. Now, I can already hear the thought in your head, I'm just one person. It's the factories, the corporations, the developing countries. It's not me. Let's clear the elephant in the room, okay? On average, one person contributes about 2 to 5 tons of carbon emissions every year. But if you're an American, that number skyrockets. It's closer to 16 tons a year. So to give you a visual, 1 ton is equivalent to the weight of a small car. So if you live in America, that means your yearly impact equals 16 small cars. And then let's continue this further, because you don't just have 16. Multiply that by your age, and that number is jaw-dropping. Like, that's crazy. One person. Now, here's something else to notice. The American carbon footprint is significantly greater than that of individuals living in less developed countries. And yet, do you know what the US has done for many years? Shipped our waste overseas. That's right. Instead of managing it ourselves, America has historically shipped waste across the ocean to countries without the infrastructure or capacity to properly handle it. Non-developed countries, those already facing limitations, end up carrying the burden of your waste. So now I want you to ask yourself, if you're an American, in what way do they, countries with less infrastructure, fewer resources, and far less consumption, contribute more to this problem than we do? The answer is they don't. And here's my follow-up. If you as one individual can contribute negatively to the planet, what makes you so sure you can't contribute positively? What stops you from believing that you could make a difference? Let me pull a card here. Oh yes, it's the king. Martin Luther King Jr., he had a vision, a dream. He was just one man, but did he not change the way millions thought, spoke, acted? Did he not start a movement that reshaped the course of history? One person can create change, and often it begins not with millions, but with 5 people. Then those 5 sharing with 5 more, and on it goes. And yet, the most common mindset I encounter is that I'm just one person. What can I really do? The truth is, you can do a lot. And that takes us to part 3. Water as a habit and a lifeline. Okay, pause for a second because I need a sip of water. I built this habit of carrying my water bottle with me everywhere I go. And I utilize it over glass in my house. It's kind of funny because I just bring it with me everywhere. So I take it with me in the movie theaters, even restaurants, because I could never get a glass without a straw. But if you think about it, it's how most people are with their phones. For me, it's honestly how I used to be with vaping. That was the first thing I'd reach for every time I went anywhere in the house, especially if I left the house. But Thankfully, that season of my life is over. Now my water bottle has taken its place, and I'm proud of myself. Okay. So here's why this matters. The habit stuck because I made it easy. If you've read Atomic Habits, you know this philosophy: make the habit obvious, make it accessible. By bringing my water bottle everywhere, I set myself up for success. Now, every time I'm thirsty, the option is right there, and it's spiraled into me craving water. On good days, I drank 3+ bottles of 32 ounces each, right? Some days are better than others, but that's life. So, what's the point here? Two beautiful concepts came together and changed my life. The first one is sustainability. Using a reusable water bottle everywhere I go greatly reduces my carbon footprint and helps cut down on single-use plastic. 2, health. Water is the most essential element for my body. It helps me think, it helps me sleep, it regenerates my cells, and it even fights diseases. Water fuels me internally, and at the same time, water is the very thing that fuels our planet externally. Both we and the environment depend on it to survive. But here's the thing. In developed countries like the US, water is so easy to access that we take it for granted. It feels almost too generic to truly value. You've seen the nonprofit ads, children in communities in other countries struggling for access to clean water. And sure, we might feel compassion for a moment, but because we aren't exposed to it in our daily lives, it's easy to dismiss it as irrelevant. We think, bigger organizations will handle it. They'll make the changes, right? But that's not the truth. The reality is that individual choices add up, and often the simplest actions, like drinking water from a reusable bottle, can create a ripple effect larger than we realize. So let's zoom out for a second. Think Mars versus Earth, right? What makes Earth habitable and Mars not? The first answer, water. The oceans make life on this planet possible. Without them, Earth would be as barren as Mars. But here's where it gets ironic. We treat oceans and lakes as amenities, vacation spots, backgrounds for Instagram photos, places to relax, which they are, sure. But at their core, there's so much more, right? They are life itself. So let's get practical again. The average American has 3 to 4 reusable water bottles at home. And yet, we still contribute to the billion plastic bottles consumed every year. That's wild. Billion on an annual basis. We have the tools, but we're not using them. And here's the kicker. Americans are actually the most dehydrated we've ever been in history. Isn't that insane? We have more access to water than ever, more reusable bottles than ever, and yet we're somehow still drinking less. Now, I hear this a lot, right? But I can recycle, Gabby. Listen, I love that. Recycling is important. But you know what's even more efficient? Preventing the waste in the first place. That's why I say, bring your water bottle with you everywhere. It should be right there with you. Your keys, your wallet, your phone, water bottle. No excuses. And yes, I know what you're about to say. But Gabby, didn't you mention tap water is stripped of minerals we actually need? Yes, I did. And 1, thank you for remembering that. I appreciate that. 2, that's why I recommend carrying a little travel salt with you. Add a pinch to your water, just enough to remineralize it. Don't make it taste like the ocean. Just find that balance that feels good to you. And once you do, you'll notice your body craving water more and thanking you for it. And guess what? I did that, and I can tell you, it works. So, please, 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 do the damn thing. You know what I mean? Just you got it. And here's another layer. Studies show that the US and the UK lead the world in plastic waste per person. Not only that, but plastic bottles also contain microplastics. That means they don't just harm the environment when we're done with them. They come back around and harm us. So you may be like, okay, well, unless it's heated or it's, breaking down, right? It's not decomposing, but it breaks into smaller pieces. That's what I mean by breaking down. So unless it's heated or it's breaking down, it doesn't really do that to me. Okay. But it gets into our waterways, which ultimately, that's what I mean when it comes back around and harms us. All of that gets back into our water system. So microplastics are already in our homes. They're now in our food. They're even in our bodies. They affect our health, our cells, future children, and it's all tied back to a disposable bottle of water we thought didn't even matter. So when you start to see the connection, it's not just about the oceans, the turtles, or marine life. It's about you. It's about all of us, because what we put into the environment always finds its way back. And that leads us to part 4, the bigger picture of sustainability. Here's the thing. Contributing positively in our lives doesn't just impact us. It ripples outwards towards the planet, to the people around us, and eventually right back to ourselves. So you might be asking, if this is all true, if this really is threatening the well-being of our own civilization, then why aren't we doing anything about it? Well, guess what? We are. Millions of individuals all over the world care. Organizations care. Even entire countries care. It's what I like to call the happily living community, an unspoken movement of people who are all making small choices that matter. But really, can we call it unspoken? Voices are rising everywhere. Leaders, scientists, nonprofits, even businesses are pushing change. What's tough is that the second you bring it up, it gets labeled political. And I need to pause here and say this. There is nothing political about wanting to save the one planet we live on. But unfortunately, in today's society, issues of sustainability have been politicized. For example, the United States stepping out of the Paris Agreement in an international commitment to address climate change. That choice didn't just create a political divide. It created a stigma around the very phrase climate change. Suddenly, people don't believe it's real or they dismiss it as an agenda. So let's shift the perspective. Forget climate change for a moment. Think of it like running a business. If you owned a company, your job would be to maximize resources in the most efficient, profitable way to ensure long-term success, right? You wouldn't invest in a company that used up all its resources in the first 5 years, leaving nothing for the future. You'd call that a terrible business model. And yet, that is how so much of our society operates. Unsustainable growth, infinite consumption, short-term profit over long-term stability. Let's take it further. Imagine you hire a director of business continuity. Their entire job is to forecast and protect the future of your company. They present a 20-year projection, and by year 12, your resources are scarce and costs are skyrocketing. Quality is going down, prices are going up. Wouldn't you be really upset, like furious? You just trusted someone to ensure the future of a company you created, but they created a model that was destined to collapse. That's exactly what happens when societies operate unsustainably. And that's why our economy feels the way it does today. Things are more expensive, quality is going down, resources are harder to come by. And instead of addressing the root cause, we scramble for quick fixes. Why? Because we've been conditioned into instant gratification. We want everything now, yesterday even. The new shirt, because our friend had it, the cheap hairdryer for a trip because it'll get here in 2 days, the throwaway case because we're bored of the old one. Sustainability and quality get tossed aside in favor of speed, convenience, and novelty. And we don't care about the quality. We don't care if it breaks. We don't care if we have to throw it away or it ends up in a landfill. It's out of sight, out of mind. But here's the truth, you guys. Nothing you throw away ever actually goes away. It never leaves the planet. It just left your house. And this mindset, this unsustainable way of living, is what has led us to where we are now. Which brings us to part 5, the origin of sustainable living. Before we go any further, let's understand why all of this matters. Why should we care about living sustainably? Why should we sacrifice convenience for something that doesn't seem to directly impact us today? To answer that, we have to look back long before modern society, before technology, before our current way of life with Amazon Prime and DoorDash. For centuries, many cultures lived with one central focus: survival through harmony. And one of the most profound examples of this comes from the Native American way of life. Native Americans lived in deep coexistence with the land. Every decision, every ritual, every harvest made with intention and respect. They believed the earth was not a resource to be owned, but a relative to be honored. The rivers are sacred, the soil is alive, the animals are teachers and equals. Living sustainably to them wasn't about deprivation, it was about relationships. It meant living with enough humility to know that humans are not separate from nature, but a part of it. That our survival depends on the same rivers, trees, and soil we so often take for granted. When Native American tribes utilized resources from the land, whether trees, plants, animals, or water, they did so within a philosophy of reciprocal stewardship. This meant that every act of taking was balanced with an act of giving or care. Sustainability wasn't a lifestyle or trend or a checklist, it was a way of being. To live in the native way was to live with awareness, deep, daily awareness of how everything is connected. Every breath, every meal, every fire lit at night was part of an ongoing relationship with the earth. If they harvested berries, they made sure to leave enough for birds and bears. They didn't take more than they needed, ensuring the life cycle continued. And maybe that's where we've lost our way. Somewhere between progress and convenience, we forgot how to live in that sacred exchange. They lived in balance with what the land provided, and their way of living sustained itself. And these practices weren't primitive. They were profoundly intelligent. They understood what our society has forgotten, that the health of the earth directly determines the health of its people. And the land we live on today, wherever you are, was once carefully stewarded by indigenous peoples who nurtured it for generations. The forests you hike, the rivers you swim in, the soil that grows your food, these exist because of their respect for balance. Modern sustainability isn't a trend, it's a return. It's a return to wisdom that's been here all along. But again, somewhere along the way, we lost that connection and we traded long-term harmony for short-term gain. We created a culture of instant gratification, right? Like more clothes, more gadgets, more stuff without thinking about where it comes from or even where it goes. And many people say, why should I care about future generations? I won't even be here. But that's the exact opposite of how Native Americans communities lived. They followed what's known as the 7th generation principle, a guiding belief that every decision made today should benefit 7 generations ahead. 7. They thought beyond their own lifetime, beyond their children's, beyond their grandchildren's, for those who would come centuries later. Compare that to the mindset of today. I'll just buy another one. I can get it delivered tomorrow. It's not that we're bad people. It's that we've become disconnected. We've forgotten that every action echoes into the future. So if you've ever thought, I'm not a nature person, or sustainability isn't for me, I want you to remember this. Sustainability is not about perfection. It's about participation. It's about remembering what our ancestors already knew, that the earth doesn't need us. We need the earth. And no matter your belief, your background, or where you come from, we are all from the same place, Earth. We all rely on the same resources to survive. We all breathe the same air. We all share the same water, the lifeblood of our planet. Yet water is finite. Every drop we take, every river we touch, carries the responsibility of reciprocity. This is why mindful water use is not just practical, it's part of honoring the earth itself. So let's be kind, let's choose to love first. That is the heart of stewardship, that is sustainability, that is living gratefully. And if you think about it, that truth runs parallel to faith itself. In Genesis, creation unfolds in 7 days, each one adding light, water, land, and life in perfect balance. And God called it good. That's the original rhythm of sustainability, divine order, care, and gratitude. We are a part of that same creation story. We weren't placed above the earth, but within it, given the gift of caretaking, not ownership. The earth doesn't need us to survive, but we need the earth to live. That truth is the foundation of respect. And to care for the planet is to honor the Creator. To live gratefully is to live sustainably, because gratitude is where love begins, and love is where sustainability lasts. Somewhere along the way, we traded that rhythm for speed, for comfort, for more. But the earth never stopped offering itself to us. While we can create a massive impact on the planet, if we let it, the earth can quickly restore itself back into alignment. But that all starts with how you live on a day-to-day basis. Remember that the planet is a gift, that what we do here matters, not just for us, but for those who come after. So, how you dispose of the paint in your home, how you decide to go about pesticide use and weed killer, anything that goes down the waterways gets back into our water systems and ultimately comes back to us. Which leads me to part 6, why every piece of nature matters. Let's pause here and ask the question, why does nature even matter? Why should we care about sustainability if we're not even nature people? The truth is, nature isn't optional, okay? It's not just the beautiful sunsets or the flowers we love to photograph. It's every creature, every force, every detail, down to the ones we dislike or overlook, and that holds our world together. Take wasps, right? Do most of us enjoy wasps? No. But they are the second largest pollinators on the earth. And without them, food systems would collapse. My sister told me when she was over, she's like, hey, you have a lot of wasps. I'm like, I know. She's like, you need to do something about that because that's not good. And I'm like, did you know that wasps are the second biggest pollinators on Earth? She's like, no, that's not true. I'm like, yeah, that's true. And did you know that they're very territorial? So if you make a makeshift wasp nest, just like the Japanese culture do, then they will not nest near that. She's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, I know. Now you know. Flies, the ultimate nuisance, are actually one of the biggest supporters of decomposition. They recycle nutrients, they prevent disease outbreaks, and yes, they even pollinate. So without flies, we wouldn't have chocolate. Let that sink in. So when we were in Italy, and there were flies like nobody's business, like it was driving me nuts. They would sell lavender everywhere, like lavender bags, like just anything with lavender. And it repels flies. So you know what I did? I planted lavender all around my house. And not only has it kept the deer away, but also helps repel a lot of flies. Now some come around. Nala's just really just getting in the way of this episode. I'm sorry. So some have flies, and sometimes we get them in the house, and the dogs will eat them. So I'm grateful for that. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of resources that are not going to affect us in the long term that do help get the same message across, if you will, that still help get the job done. And then there are sharks, right? We talk about them often because they're critical. Sharks prevent diseased and wounded fish from reproducing and keep grazers from overeating coral reefs. They are the reason why oceans recover so quickly after disruption. So no sharks, no healthy oceans. No healthy oceans, no thriving coastal communities, meaning that your beach days are going to look like garbage. There's going to be a lot of algal blooms and red tide. And hey, Miss Girl in the back, that means 86 sushi. 86. 86 is the restaurant term for out, by the way. So no more sushi. Oysters, you can say goodbye to those. Now to the ocean's cleaners, right? They're oysters, but they're sea cucumbers, and they also filter the ocean. Sea cucumbers are really, really interesting. It's something that are actually like caught and sold in Mexico, and it's illegal, but it's just another way to make money, right? And people eat them. It's actually crazy because just like oysters, right? Filtering, it's kind of gross, but I'm not here to judge. And they look like cucumbers. That's why they're called sea cucumbers. And they kind of resemble like a slug too, in a way. They regulate acidity levels, which directly impacts sharks, directly impacts rays and skates, creatures made of cartilage. So not bone, right? If acidity rises too high, their teeth break down. And as you know, it's hard to survive without teeth, right? How are you going to eat? Oh my gosh. I can't say it out loud, but I'm gonna. My grandma, a picture of my grandma without her teeth and just popped into my head. I feel so bad. She's turning in her grave. Anyways, but it's not just animals, right? Wind plays a role so significant that when scientists attempted to build self-sustaining domes, everything thrived until the trees grew tall. And without wind, the trees never built the strength. And so once they reached a certain height, they fell, right? So like everything was going great. I think it was probably trying to see if they could live on Mars. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the logistics on that. It's insane. But they were trying to figure out if they could create a world inside of a dome. And without the wind, the trees weren't able... Goodness gracious, Blue. I really got to get my own podcast room. This is nuts. But without the wind, they fell. Like the trees just came crashing down and they died. Wind shapes resilience. It not only disperses seeds, but it also circulates nutrients in the ocean. It regulates the climate, and it even guides animal migrations. Like wind does a lot. It doesn't just make you have a bad hair day. Then there's fog, right? In places like California, if you go over the Golden Gate Bridge at certain times in the year, sometimes you can't really see it, right? You try to take a picture and it's like you never even went, right? We've all been there. I've actually never been, but fog delivers 30 to 40% of the water that sustains the redwood trees in California, right? These are where they're located. So without it, the redwood trees would die, coastal communities would face drought, famine, and wildfire. And fog also sustains salmon runs, which entire food chains, including us, depend on. So you see the pattern, every piece of nature, whether we like it or not, is essential. So without wasps, without flies, without sharks, without sea cucumbers, without wind or fog, life as we know it wouldn't exist. And here's the perspective shift. Most of us know the names of celebrities better than we know the species keeping us alive. Like, imagine telling someone today or tonight or tomorrow or next week that if flies were not on this planet, we could die. Like, we could very well die from famine. It's a huge concern. Look it up. I mean, it's not a huge concern, right? Like, people aren't like, oh my gosh, flies are dying. No, it's like the fact that we could die without flies, it's kind of crazy to think about. So we rely on these overlooked, unglamorous, often inconvenient parts of the ecosystem. We don't rely on celebrities for survival. And the reality is this: nature doesn't make mistakes. Every detail, every creature, every process has a purpose. And you remove one piece and the entire system weakens. And that leads us to our final part in today's episode. Part 7, water, daily practice, and full circle perspective. So now that we've explored the incredible complexity of nature, let's bring it full circle back to something simple, tangible, and actionable. Okay? Water. Water isn't just essential for life. It's a daily reminder of how connected we are to the planet. So when I carry my water bottle everywhere, I'm not just staying hydrated. I'm practicing a small, consistent action that reduces my plastic use. It supports my health and honors the environment. It's my tiny way of saying, I matter, my actions matter, and the planet matters. And this is where mindful daily practice comes in. Just like we talked about with Atomic Habits, the key is to make it easy. Carry your water bottle, sip frequently, even consider adding a pinch of travel salt to remineralize your water. Little actions like this, repeated over time, compound into massive impact for your body and the planet. And think about it. The oceans that sustain us, the fog that waters the trees, the wind that circulates the ocean and regulates climate, all these forces rely on balance, consistency, and care. And our personal habits can mirror that. Every time we choose reusable over disposable, awareness over ignorance, we're participating in a cycle of life rather than working against it. And here's the beauty. When you start taking responsibility for the small things, your water, your waste, your consumption, you start noticing the bigger picture. You notice the importance of sharks, sea cucumbers, wasps, flies, wind, fog. You realize that the systems we take for granted are incredibly fragile and interconnected. And that is what the Happily Living podcast is all about, helping you see invisible connections, empowering you to take meaningful action, inspiring you to live a life rooted in both self-care and planetary care. So here's my invitation to you. Carry your water bottle. Pay attention to the life around you, the creatures, the elements, the systems that make your existence possible. Take small, consistent actions to reduce your footprint. Celebrate the little victories. And never underestimate the power of one person, because one person can start a ripple. One habit can ignite a change, and one life lived intentionally can inspire countless others. In the end, sustainability, mindfulness, and care for our world aren't abstract concepts. They're lived experiences, practical, daily, and profoundly transformative. Drink your water, care for the world, and remember, every small action counts. Again, I'm your host, Gabrielle Brown, and we'll see you next month with Happily Living. With love and